This video is brought to you by Scopic.com. Get yours now. Hey guys, welcome back. This is fullfrontk.com, and today we're going to take a look at the LG's new flagship, the G6. The one we're using today is the Korean model. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because the G6 has different specs depending on the regions that you purchase this in. The Korean model that we have here has got a 64GB of storage, Hi-Fi Quad DAC, and the MST for LG Pay is also included, while the American model has a wireless charging built in, but no MST, no DAC, 32GB of storage, and no white color. Rest of the world is not getting any of the things that I mentioned, but they still do have the Snapdragon 821 quad-core processor, 4GB of RAM, and 3300mAh of built-in battery. Now let's start with the design. LG finally has a de facto standard material for the flagship phones, the metal chassis and the front and back panel with the glasses built in. Overall, it's got a great build quality while also touting the IP68 water and dust resistance. This guy is also mil-spec certified, so it's going to be more rugged compared to the other phones against the drops and damages. One interesting part is the choice of materials. It's got a Gorilla Glass 3 on the front panel, which is quite old, and Gorilla Glass 5, which is the latest on the rear panel, but a Gorilla Glass 4 panel around the camera. It is also a departure from the previous LG flagships, changing the replaceable battery to the built-in battery. I personally really don't care about that part, but some of you might do. One part that does annoy me is the position of the headphone jack. I rather like it on the bottom, but unfortunately it's on the top. The 24-bit hi-fi recorder does a great job if that's your thing, and the call quality is also pretty decent. Speaker is another part that is pretty good, it's loud and clear, although I would have definitely appreciated dual stereo speaker on a phone size like this. You can turn on the phone by either double tapping the screen, the knock-on technology, or by using that fingerprint reader. The fingerprint reader is pretty fast and accurate, although I'm not really a fan of those combo power key with the fingerprint reader built in. Now let's talk about that display. It's got an 18:9, or if you want to divide that, it's 1:2. And the body to screen ratio is simply amazing. It looks really full, and thus LG calls it the full vision display. It's also got rounded corners to make it sturdy against the drops, although I think they could have polished it better. There's also some new technologies built in. It's got a Dolby Vision and HDR10 support. But unfortunately, as of time right now, there aren't really that much content that are designed for this kind of display. And then the display looks a little pale or bluish to me. You can adjust it by turning on the comfort view, but it's not exactly in a white balance setting, something that LG has been missing for quite a long time. And also, while the display looks bright enough for indoors, when you go outdoors, especially under the direct sunlight, it's not as bright as you wish it to be. The new 18:9 display ratio is really good for reading a long article, but not all the apps are designed for this ratio. In that case, you can tap on the app scaling menu to make your app look either in compatibility, standard, or full screen mode. One thing that could have made it better is the multi-selection mode. Currently, you have to tap on every individual app to change the settings. I wish I could have done it at once. My main source of video, YouTube, is going to show the letterboxes or the black empty parts around these corners. And while you can choose to crop out the top and bottom to make it full screen, on third-party apps, you cannot do that on YouTube. Getting back to the specs, it's got a Snapdragon 821 quad-core processor, and that is a pretty powerful processor even in time of 2017. So whichever app that you launch from your phone is going to launch without any lags. It's a quite snappy phone, whichever task that you throw at it. That said, it's probably going to be good for another 2 years for your contract, but Snapdragon 835 is definitely coming, and it's going to be good in both specs and energy efficiency, since that is built on 10nm process, not to mention the better heat management. It's also got some nifty built-in themes, LG Platinum, Black, White, High Contrast, but I really don't like any of them. The built-in LG one is too colorful, while the Platinum and Black is way too dull, and the High Contrast doesn't really go well with the silver color that I have. You can surely download some more from the LG SmartWorld app, but I personally don't think any of them look good. Samsung Galaxy's got really great themes there, and they're constantly updating, and this is something that LG does have to work on. And also, LG was proud to introduce the G6 as the first non-Pixel phone to have the Google Assistant built in, but Google is actually rolling that out to any Android phone running the OS above Android Marshmallow, so that is going to be something that you will all find on your phones. Now let's move on to another important aspect of flagship, the cameras. Just like the G5 and V20, it's got dual cameras. One is normal angle and one is in wide angle. It's got some interesting framing modes built in that you can play with, and when you're taking your photo in 4:3 ratio, it shows photo that you have taken on the left hand side so you can review the photos while taking the new one. Now out of the two cameras, the normal angle camera could have been a bit wider, while the wide angle camera does a pretty bad job at low lighting condition and also is lacking the autofocus. There is also no laser autofocus and color spectrum sensor, although the face detection autofocus might be able to compensate that. Both of the sensors are the Sony IMX258, which by no means is a high-end sensor. It's the same one included in the OnePlus X, Xiaomi Redmi Note 4, or the Coolpad Coolchanger 1C. And I can see that LG has tried their best to make the photos look good, but it's not quite enough. While they look perfectly great under lighting, in low lighting conditions they look inevitably smudged. And if you're a selfie person, you'll get disappointed even more. Low lighting condition selfie photos look just terrible. And another thing that's now missing from the multimedia package is an IR blaster. If you used to like controlling your tele with your phone, now you can't. Now, perhaps the most important thing for the modern smartphone could be the battery. It's got a 3300 mAh built-in battery, and the result isn't exactly great. Yes, it is a lot better than the G5, but screen on time remains at 3.5 hours to 4 hours. Just a heads up, I'm always on the LTE network, I surf the web all the time, so I probably consume more battery than most of you, so you'll be able to get an hour or so more than my results. But still, compared to the other latest flagships, this is a pretty disappointing result. Charging up that not so long-lasting battery isn't so fast either. It's done by the USB Type-C port there, and it does support the QuickCharge 3.0, but the bundle charger supports only up to QuickCharge 2.0. And the charging takes about 2 hours, which is not so fast in the 2017 standards. With that, I think I mentioned most of the important parts. Now, let's move on to the verdict, shall we? Overall, the LG G6 is a pretty well-built phone. It's not a bad phone at all. But is it good enough to ask for that premium flagship price? I can't really quite agree on that part. I get the reasons behind all the things that G6 is missing. Snapdragon 835 was all taken by Samsung, not so great sensor because they wanted to get rid of the camera bump, not the brightest panel because they wanted to stick to the IPS quantum display. But the problem is, there are alternatives. Especially so, Samsung Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus is coming very soon. And of course no, I haven't tried the Galaxy S8 yet, and I don't know how good that is yet. But even the last generation flagship phones from Samsung or HTC or Sony were better in some parts than the G6 in 2017, especially in some important parts like camera or battery life. That's why I say while this is a pretty well built phone and I actually like the way it looks and way it feels in my hand, I would like to conclude that this is a phone that is a bit overpriced. It's not a bad phone, but not at this price in 2017. So that was the LG G6. Thank you always for watching. I hope it helped. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments, and we'll see you guys later. Meanwhile, you can meet us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and we'll see you later. Ciao.